What's up, everybody? Welcome back to the Second Street Marvel. And today, it is Monday, and we are back on this live stream that I am starting to try to do every single morning, probably here between 8 o'clock a.m. and 9 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. So please make sure you're subscribed and click the little bell so you get notifications and, all of that good stuff. Now, occasionally I do giveaways here on the channel, so that's definitely one reason you should be subscribed. But the other reason is because, well, I talk a lot about movies, music, comic books, and different things like that as well. Just other nerdy things. And, one of the biggest things is obviously when it comes to these sort of things is you, the audience, and helping giving me input for the things that you would like me to talk about. So today, as you can see from the title and even the thumbnail, today I'm going to be talking about Quentin Tarantino's newest film, Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. Now, I'm not sure if you guys have all gotten a chance to go out and see this film yet, but if you haven't, I think you probably should. I thought it was a pretty good movie. Now, where does it rank amongst other Quentin Tarantino films? I don't know. I guess you could say it's really hard to say at this point. I mean, he's got what is this? His ninth film. Lord Callis, welcome to the stream. Thank you for being here. And yeah, once again, Quentin Tarantino comes in, knocks it out of the park. Very very entertaining movie, as we can see that it is somewhat based on Hollywood back in the late '60s. And overall, I thought the movie was pretty good. I really have no complaints about it, other than it was a little bit longer than it probably needed to be. But other than that, this movie was a pretty typical Tarantino type of flick. We got just you can tell obviously by the aesthetic of the film that it is definitely a Quentin Tarantino film, where just the typical Quentin Tarantino kind of things in the movie. The cinematography, the music, the dialogue. A lot of this is classic Quentin Tarantino. Now, it's kind of how would you say, it's got a retro kind of vintage feel. Obviously supposed to be placed back in the 70s and loosely based on the events that happened with the Manson murders and all those kinds of different things. Like I said, overall I thought the movie was pretty entertaining. It seemed, like I said, it did seem a little longer than it needed to be. There's a whole lot of shots throughout the movie that just obviously seem long and gratuitous, kind of drawn out stuff that probably don't necessarily need to be in the movie. But for me, I think it helps bring character to obviously the Hollywood in the 60s, and even just these kind of vintage type of movies. I mean, like I said, Quentin Tarantino has, you can tell he definitely has a love for film noir, I guess you could say, or just film history, and you can see that in a lot of the works that he done, especially movies like Reservoir Dogs, Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, like this one, and even Pulp Fiction was obviously a huge one as well, that kind of played on a lot of those kind of old style of movies. Again, he just does so many great things with the camera movements, not only violence and simulated violence, and just kind of really building things up, and you never really quite know where he's going to go in this one. And towards the very last of this film, he kind of takes things in a different direction that really, I thought it was actually pretty good. It made me laugh. It was entertaining there towards the end, and you could tell, like, if you ask me, he probably could have cut like those last 15 minutes out of the movie and it would have been just fine. But of course, he had to go Quentin Tarantino and do his little thing in this movie. And like I said, it was entertaining and over the top. And you can't really fault him for it. But at this point, just kind of the way it goes. I mean, it seems like I don't know, one of those kinds of things where it's almost comedic. Like you're crafting this really good film, and then you took it someplace it didn't really need to go, but you went there anyway. And I don't know. I think it really just works. It just really worked on screen. Now, like I said, I don't think it necessarily had to be in the film, but I don't know. I think there was somewhat of a gratuitous payoff towards the end there. Now, the stars of this film are Brad Pitt. Obviously, comes in and does an amazing job. does an amazing job, and you can't even really say he's necessarily a backup character to Leonardo DiCaprio, as he is. Leonardo DiCaprio's character in the movie is Rick Dalton, who is a big time Western star, starring in westerns and just a Hollywood star, and who's basically losing his way. His fame is going downhill, and you can see, this is something we've probably seen happen with a lot of other movie stars throughout the course of history. I mean, really, this movie is about an actor's journey, really, and I think that was the ingenious thing about it. I mean, there was points in the movie where I'm like, what is this movie necessarily about exactly? Because the trailer gives you one thing, and a couple different little things to kind of set it up, but you don't really know. And of course, just like any Quentin Tarantino movie, you honestly probably don't really know what's going to be happening. And I think that's what he done here in this movie. Just playing on a lot of great things that made for a pretty good film. And Tom the comic book nerd says, "Hey man, been thinking whether to see this at the weekend." You know what? It was definitely a good movie. If you're a Quentin Tarantino film fan, you should probably definitely get out to the theater and see it. There are just shots in this movie that are just really great shots. Stuff to me that, I mean, is meant to be seen on the big screen, just like Pulp Fiction, Reservoir Dogs, just all these kind of big movies that he does. I mean, they're kind of grandiose, and he really, really puts them out there like that. Again, I think there's really, I think, only a handful of, I don't know, maybe one, two, three, maybe about half of his films that I haven't actually seen in theaters. So it's definitely a movie going experience. I would say definitely something worth getting out to see at the movie theater. And if you're like me, you don't like, I've got a huge family and everything. It's not huge, but I've got a big family, and it gets expensive to take them all. But obviously, this is a movie I'm not going to take my kids to. My wife wasn't really into it. She's not a huge Quentin Tarantino fan, but it was definitely worth the money. But like me, where I live at, and I'm sure a lot of these places have this. They got a discount Tuesday, so if it's something you can't afford, or you just don't want to spend all that much money on, wait and go see it on a Tuesday. Like where I live at, we have discount Tuesdays. I'm sure a lot of theaters do something similar to the early to midweek for theater goers. So it's definitely worth the money to get out and see early. How long was it? Rhodes was impressed with the last 20 minutes. You feel the same? It's nearly. I can't remember how long it is. It's nearly 3 hours long. The last 20 minutes of the movie are. Like I said, he takes it in a different direction. Obviously, I guess we could call it revisionist history, which this is loosely based on Hollywood back in those days, and the Charles Manson murders, and just all of that different stuff. I wouldn't say I was impressed with the last 20 minutes, merely because it's almost something that you expect out of a Quentin Tarantino movie. He starts to really ramps up the action. It gets pretty gory, grotesque, just over the top stuff that Quentin Tarantino does in his movies. And it's funny because throughout the whole movie you're kind of thinking like, when is this going to come? When is this going to come? And he really all just saves it there for the last 20 minutes. Now everything leading up to that, there are so many points in the movie where you're sitting there watching like, okay, something's getting ready to happen. This is getting ready to happen, and then it doesn't happen. Reservoir Dogs ranks in my top 20, so I will check it out. And as far as top films all time, I can't really say where Reservoir Dogs falls for me, but I can tell you it's definitely there, high on the list. I would put this movie pretty high on the list of Quentin Tarantino movies. However, just like a lot of other movies, when I actually go out and see them, I don't like to give my initial like a ranking on it right off the bat, because I feel like I haven't really watched a lot of his films lately, like haven't really went back and refreshed and watched one in a while, and I think that kind of skewers my judgment when wanting to do a ranking list on something like that, because this is a new movie, and I get new movie-itis. You see that new movie, you're excited, like, yeah, finally something new from Quentin Tarantino, or we got a new Spider-Man film, or anything like that. So I always try to I try not to think about those things. I just try to express how I feel about the movie at the time. And again, this one I thought was I thought it was a really it was a really entertaining movie. Like I said, done classic Quentin Tarantino. As you know, that Quentin Tarantino does work with a lot of the same actors when he does his movies. Not all the same, but brings people back that he's likes working with, or just maybe brought something to one of his past movies. So he go ahead and brings them back. In this one, obviously we got Bruce Dern as well. Bruce Dern came in, small part, did a good job. Tim Roth was in the movie, but yeah, man, he was cut. He was cut. It even says so in the credits, which was actually was pretty funny. But like I said, obviously we got Brad Pitt came in and did a stellar job in his role. I thought it was really good. Now the one thing I will say is Quentin Tarantino, I'm not sure what you're doing, man. I mean, I get it. Brad Pitt is a good-looking gentleman, and that shot when he was sitting there on top of that house, smoking his cigarette, shirtless. We didn't need to see that. You're making 40-year-old dudes like myself, people who are easily 10 years younger than Brad Pitt. You're making me a little bit jealous, man. Showing how good a shape he's in, man. I mean, he still looks good. He looks slim. You see his six-pack, and I'm just sitting here looking at my tubby stomach. Well, I'm not even in the theater eating popcorn. I'm sitting there drinking water at the theater, and I'm like, oh man, Brad Pitt, why you gotta make me feel like that? Of course, then again, you could always turn around and look at Margot Robbie, who was cast in the movie, and be like, okay, well, I'm sure she makes a lot of the women feel the same way. Obviously, she's a very beautiful woman as well, and really, I mean, her. She's just a beautiful actress, and she's actually a really great actress, and she's not really in this movie a whole lot, but she definitely is in the movie, and does a pretty good job in her role. Now moving on, obviously Leonardo DiCaprio was the other, I guess you could say, star of this film, and I thought Leonardo DiCaprio. No, I think I've always kind of been a Leonardo DiCaprio fan. I mean, the one thing I probably like of his the least is that Titanic, which was a huge movie, and that's just because I don't know, I'm just not really a big fan of that movie. It's not a bad movie, just not a huge fan of it. But Leonardo DiCaprio has always been a good actor, and I've really liked most of his work that he's ever been in. It's no different in this movie. I really like what they did in this movie and the way he played this role. Now, his character Rick Dalton is basically has a career that is tanking. He's being used as a heavy on TV shows, which is basically he's the bad guy who gets beat up at the end. And Al Pacino comes in, got a small role in the movie, comes in and meets with this character and pretty much lays it out for him. And in a scene that's just absolutely hilarious, in which Leonardo DiCaprio, Rick Dalton, comes out and reacts to it. The on-screen chemistry between Leonardo DiCaprio and Brad Pitt is absolutely great. You can tell these guys are obviously really great professional actors. But again, Leonardo DiCaprio comes in and absolutely nails this. And I think for some reason, he just seems like the perfect person to come in and play this Hollywood star who is losing his star power. And somehow through the course of it all, while he's struggling, while he's in his inner struggle with himself, with his addictions, giving up on them, trying to regain his I guess you could say his clout as an actor. I thought it was really good, and that's why I say this movie is so hard to judge exactly what it's about, because really it's a lot about Hollywood and like an actor's journey, and their struggles as well. So I thought a lot of that was really great and built up on screen as we see him struggling. With his life in Hollywood and the things that he has to do and go through, the things that people who do things like this probably actually really go through when they are, in the Hollywood limelight, struggling with their addiction, struggling with their personal insecurities, and letting it come out on screen. And obviously, it always seems to affect their personal life, and that's definitely something I liked about this film, was seeing all of that, because a lot of people probably would watch something like this and just laugh and like, oh man, that's like a crazy scenario. But like, I think that everything set up in this film is, like I said, really something that actors would go through, whether they're just getting into acting, trying to build their career, or even if they're on their way out on a downward trajectory. And just that whole struggle is really great. You can see that Brad Pitt's character as his stuntman is really his pal by his side through thick and thin. This dude is he's got his back. He's got his back. It's a lot like the relationship between Walter Sobchak and the dude in The Big Lebowski. You can tell these characters really care about each other. They're together. They're always working. At one point in the movie, Rick Dalton, Leonardo DiCaprio's character, kind of puts himself out there, kind of uses his name to try to get his buddy a job at a place where he's not necessarily wanted because his stuntman has some own drama in his life, has his own history, and a lot of it is I don't know. I guess you could say it's kind of noble because, in a business like that, people don't necessarily always like to put their reputations on the line. And, we can see, and it obviously happens, at some point you got to have somebody that believes in you. I mean, look exactly what happened in Iron Man. In Iron Man back in 2008, Jon Favreau, excellent director, wanted Robert Downey Jr. to come in and play Iron Man. Studios were pushing back. They didn't want him because of all the liability reasons. And, obviously Robert Downey Jr. is a talented actor. And basically Jon Favreau went to bat for him, told him hey, I need this dude in my movie, and that's something similar to like that happens in this movie where he's trying to get his friend a job because as his friend that's been with him, it's been his stunt guy pretty much since he started in the business, and I thought it was a really well played character dynamic from the movie. You can see Brad Pitt's character. He's actually more, and God, what was his name? Cliff, I can't remember. I have to look that up. But you can see that he's more than just his stand-in for stunts and things like that. The guy, it's practically his butler. He does a lot of things for him, and you can see that Leonardo DiCaprio's character really takes care of him. So yeah, those two are great. I think one of the other cameos that was really kind of nice seeing was Michael Madsen actually had a bit part in the movie, and it was pretty crazy because I swear some of the last times I've seen Michael Madsen, he's been looking pretty tore up, but and no, I'm not confusing him with Tom Sizemore. But in this movie, he actually looked pretty good, and he came in and he did what Michael Madsen does. Delivers lines like really only he can. I thought it was really great. Like I said, Al Pacino was in it. Did a very good role. And some of these other actors in this movie, I can't quite place some of the actors and actresses and where I've seen them in the past. Now, like I said, we could see the actor's journey in this movie, and there's a point where Rick Dalton, Leonardo DiCaprio's character, comes in and he's on the set of this new this movie that, or maybe it's a TV series that he didn't necessarily want to. He was reluctant to take this role. He's already been struggling with himself, and he goes and he meets this little girl on set, this young lady who's I believe she said she was 8 years old in the movie, and they have a pretty interesting little dialogue, and I thought it was really touching because this little young actress comes in as he's having a conversation with her, and really provides some great insight into kind of his life as they're talking about books, about literature, and I'm not really for sure what book that his character was reading at this point, but he turns to this little girl. He's trying not to bother her. He says he won't bother her as she's reading her book, and so she asks him about his story that he's reading, and they're sitting there just reading books to pass the time on set, and they begin talking about it, and you can see that his character kind of gets emotional about the subject matter of the book, and I don't think it's the book that he's talking about in the first place, and the little girl, kind of helps revive him, kind of helps smack him back into reality as he's talking about this book, and she shares just some kind of wonderful insights that sometimes about the only like the kind of insights that you need to get from little kids, because little kids are very observant. They have they just got like such a fresh outlook on life, and she provides a commentary that really helps carry the character forward into his next scene that he's getting ready to shoot in the movie. Now, if I remember the timeline correct, he goes in to to shoot his next scene, and he's fumbling over his words during the scene. Just kind of he doesn't necessarily mess up the scene, just has to reshoot stuff. And this is one of the things like that I thought was really reflected good in the movie was. He's sitting there acting out the scenes. He has to ask for some lines. They go through and they shoot him, and then later you see him get to his trailer, and he absolutely flips out, and just like a crazy rage, beating himself up over the things that he's done. And it was a really funny scene, and I think that's something that a lot of people do when they are struggling with things. You look at yourself. Chances are most of us are our own worst critics. So he goes and he flips out, and then he comes back. He comes back for his next scene after their lunch break, or what? It wouldn't even be after the lunch break. He comes back in for another scene later. And just delivers an absolutely spectacular performance for the next scene. I mean, he comes in and really knocks it out of the park. It was like it was something to bring him back down into reality, and get him back on track. And it seems like that's kind of what this scene done. It was really excellently played. Like I said, the young lady in this movie playing the little girl did a phenomenal job playing her role. I liked she was witty. She was I don't know. She was just very smart and knew how to improvise. Just like you could see that she was a young girl who was a good up and coming talent in this Hollywood scene, and which I thought played really great. Tom the Comic Book Nerd says, I feel that opposite of nostalgia glasses. Opposite of nostalgia glasses, yes. Lord Calla says, yeah, I like when directors do that. When they have a synergy, it often comes across better in the movie. Yeah, definitely. I mean, directors using just actors that they've worked with in the past that they know they work with. Obviously, we see that Quentin Tarantino has worked a lot with Samuel L. Jackson, and always seems to play well in his roles. Tim Roth is another one that he always seems to use. Michael Madsen. I mean, we could go on down the list. I mean, I guess it's been a while since he's worked with Harvey Keitel, but I think that's something definitely good. I mean, it does. Some people probably don't like it. Say, hey, it gets kind of old. Don't you have? Isn't there somebody else you could use like this? I feel the same way like about Tim Burton and Johnny Depp. Now, I like Johnny Depp. I'm not not a huge fan of Johnny Depp, but I like the things that he does. And the thing is I'm not really a huge Tim Burton fan. These guys work together a lot, and obviously they have a good working synergy. So I mean, there's definitely something to be said about those kinds of things when directors do that. Now, God, what I can't even think of what else. Dakota Fanning is in this movie, and to tell you the truth, like you almost like it's hard to imagine. I remember a while back, seeing Dakota Fanning as she was coming up and through her career. And then she's in this movie playing a different kind of character than we've seen her play before. She's almost unrecognizable, which was really good. Just a lot of the things that happen in this movie. Some of them you think something's getting ready to happen, then and it just doesn't happen. There's a lot of man, a lot of good setup for this movie. There's a couple of scenes where like I said, you think something's going to happen and it doesn't, and actually, it's a good thing. We can see at one point, a lot of people have been just talking about some of the scenes with Brad Pitt's character and the hippies, and I got to tell you, a lot of these scenes were great. The whole setup into it was pretty good. I mean, when you see some of these characters in the movie, and just you always kind of feel like you know where it's going to go, but it almost never quite goes there. There's this very excellent scene where Brad Pitt's character goes out to this ranch where they used to shoot movies at and everything. He goes to talk to the owner of the ranch, and as he's getting ready to do that, there's just things that you think are getting ready to happen that nothing really ends up happening until he's getting ready to leave the place, and it's not quite what you think. But definitely some good stuff. There is it seems like there's some underlying themes and underlying how would you say, just messages in this movie. And I'm not really sure that they're quite what a lot of people think, because some of them, like we hear a lot of people talking about, like these days we get like social justice warriors, people talking about those kinds of things. And obviously it seems like a lot of people are thinking that the hippies in this movie are representative of that. I don't necessarily think that's what he was trying to get across. Now, the thing is I've seen a lot of people cheering and praising this movie, and it is a great movie. I've seen other people critiquing this movie, giving their breakdown and their thoughts and reactions to it, talking about, yeah, Quentin Tarantino is sticking it to the social justice warriors and all this kinds of stuff, and which maybe he is, but we know Quentin Tarantino in his movies has never been a politically correct director. Now, the things that happen in this movie, like I said, people will probably look to and say those kinds of things, and a lot of people, like I said, will praise him about this Quentin Tarantino for these kinds of things. But the thing is like maybe not everybody's worth it. Like Quentin Tarantino is, he's more liberal than he is anything else. So I think it's no mistake. He's not an anti-social justice warrior. He's not necessarily a social justice warrior. He's, he has causes that he fights for, obviously, and has his own personal feelings, and obviously he interjects those into his movies. Now, that's the thing, is a good writer, a good director, can put those things in the movie and not necessarily exactly show what their personal feelings are. And I think that's exactly what's going on here. He's just making a movie for entertainment, and he does such a good job at it. Now, obviously, he is kind of an acquired taste, because not everybody likes Quentin Tarantino or his movies. But I think he does. I think he done a really great job in kind of really just kind of covering all the bases here. Everybody's kind of included in these things, and I think that's what it does. Is it takes a great director to maybe talk about these things, put them on screen, show representative things of them, make analogies, if you will, and it plays well in the movie, because there's points where you get good laughs out of it, and it's very entertaining. Um, yeah, and it was just I don't know. Like I said, it was a really good film, and I hate to say, like I said, I hate to say and just give hot takes on a movie. Like, I just got out of the movie, I want to say, oh, this is his best, because to me, I don't think it's nearly really even close to his best. It's just Quentin Tarantino going back to what he knows how to do best, which is taking these classic vintage type of older films and bringing his love of them to the screen. And I think that's ultimately what it is, more than trying to get messages out there, woven messages in there, just talking about the current state of politics and things like that. So it's really hard to say, exactly what you go for in this type of movie. I mean, all it is entertainment, over the top, gratuitous entertainment. And this one, I think, if you're a Quentin Tarantino fan, you're gonna like this film. Now, if you're somebody who wants to see like maybe like a kind of parody or something that parallels what some of these old films, or what kind of goes on in Hollywood back in those days, this isn't going to be for you, maybe, because that's not what it is. It's an entertainment piece, but definitely very entertaining. And Lord Callis says, yeah, I like Leonardo DiCaprio too. Yeah, Leonardo DiCaprio is great. I can't, one of my favorite movies ever that he was in is, man, he was a youngster. It was Robert De Niro, Ellen Barkin, and Leonardo DiCaprio. It was This Boy's Life. Isn't that what it's called? This Boy's Life. And it was a really good one. One of the probably not one of the first films I've seen him in, but definitely one I've seen a long time ago. He was a youngster in it, in which he was playing. His mother was played by Ellen Barkin. Was She was divorced. And she ends up marrying Robert De Niro's character in this movie, and his character, he's just an abusive father or husband, I guess, because it's not his father in the movie, but he did a really great job in that movie. And like I said, that to me that was one of probably be one of my favorite films of his for a long time, because he's just this little kid and this with this stepfather who is abusive to him. He does things he can to try to fight back, try to get his mom to realize how big of a turd this guy is, and by the end of the movie, she ends up leaving him and all these kinds of things, but obviously not without going through hell first. So again, that's one of my favorite Leonardo DiCaprio movies. Obviously, he's in a slew of other films that are great. The Departed, I can think of, just right off the top of my head, is another great one that he was in. And yeah, Leonardo DiCaprio is great. Wars 2, welcome to the stream, man. Confirmed. Confirmed. I know. I've got to see if I can get my friend to come back here and bring that inside source from We Got This Covered, and see if we can get him back on the show one of these days for another one of those maybe future of the MCU confirmations. I'll see about doing that. He's a very busy guy, getting those leaks and getting them confirmed. It's not an easy job. It's not an easy job. So we'll see if we can get him back on the show. I actually went to see this movie Once Upon a Time in Hollywood with him. It was actually his idea to go. I was going to go see it yesterday, or not yesterday, but on Saturday. I just didn't get a chance to. Had just busy with other things, man. We're all busy with life. But again, yeah, where else could we go? Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. There's obviously, like I said, this doesn't exactly follow what happened in real life. It's all gratuitous. There's a lot of driving scenes in this movie. There's definitely a lot of this kind of things that happen in this movie that could easily make this movie shorter than it is. Things that could be taken out of there, just kind of set up, just shots. But nothing I can complain about, because I wasn't really doing anything on a Sunday afternoon anyway, except for wanting to go see this new Quentin Tarantino film. And I've got to say, like, the theater that I was at, it was pretty packed. It was a little bit more packed than I expected when I went to go see this film, because I know that obviously he's a big director. A lot of people like his work, but on a Sunday afternoon. Okay, well, we go at 4:30 here. I was surprised to see that many people at this film at this point in the day, in the weekend, really. So it was kind of nice to see that. And I actually looked at the box office numbers, and I'm not sure if the box office numbers for this movie are good or not, but it took number 2 at the box office this weekend, which was I would say was pretty good. I think it lost to Lion King, which to me, I can't say it's a surprise. Obviously, Lion King is a big Disney movie that had just been. I'm not even sure if you can call it remade. I guess it was remade, but it's not it is animated. That's the thing. This is the difficult thing about all of these. Some of these reboots, remakes, and things these days is exactly what do you call it? Because from what I hear, it's a shot-for-shot remake for the most part. They added a new song and some different things like that. So I don't really know. I don't really go and see these types of movies. I'm actually a huge Jon Favreau fan, and I haven't seen one of his remakes that he's done like this. I'm just, I like the classic cartoons. Just to me, the live action, it's all fine and dandy, but why don't we just change it up? And obviously this one right here is done with animals, and it's probably hard to get animal actors to actually do what you want them to. So it's all digital. So in the end, it ends up being animated in the first place. Patriarch of the Sith, welcome to the live stream. War Street says, "Do it, dude." Yeah, we'll get him back on the show here pretty soon. What movie is it where DiCaprio was a paper hanger? The Aviator? Yeah, I believe that was. I don't think I've ever seen that one. That's one of his films that I haven't seen. Like, what was the other one that he just recently did too that was like vintage? Was he in Great Gatsby? Wasn't it? Isn't that the one I'm thinking of? Again, that's another one I haven't seen. Probably something I definitely need to see. Like I said, I like Leonardo DiCaprio's movies, and definitely would check out some of the things he'd done. But yeah, I'm pretty sure that was the Aviator that you're talking about. It wasn't live action; it was live CGI. Yeah, true. Yeah, it was. Yeah. Yeah, it's like I said, it's so always so hard to say when we're drawing the lines when it comes to these types of movies, and which brings me into something else. A lot of people, I notice people who like to talk about movies and things like this. These people aren't necessarily movie critics, movie reviewers. I mean, they review movies and things like that, and that's all fine and dandy. Everybody has their opinion when it comes to these things. Everybody has their thoughts, and that's cool. I think a lot more people should get out there and share them. Now, the only thing is a lot of people look to these people like, oh, it's this movie review, or it's this, like no, like a lot of people aren't necessarily movie reviewers or critics. We just give our opinions on the movies. Like I said, I like to critique movies and things like that, but I'm not really like a movie reviewer or movie critic. Like I said, I like to critique movies, give kind of my thoughts on them. Maybe not. I guess kind of an objective point of view, because when it comes down to a film, if I'm trying to review or something like that for an audience member or somebody who's watching my show and wants to see it, really a lot of the times, I just want to break down what the movie is and tell you whether it's a good movie or whether I think you should go see it or not. And that's really all it really boils down to. My personal thoughts on them very rarely. Shouldn't really mean much to an actual review, but of course we're going to toss you toss that in there so people know where you stand on it as well, because I could easily go out there and criticize a bunch of movies that I don't like without giving you the feeling that I don't like them, but I will obviously tell you that I don't like them, and that's the beauty of it is, I'm not somebody, even when I got to criticize, I've got some comic book reviews that I've actually got to do here, get all edited and get all uploaded here on YouTube, and I've got some that I don't really like to do these kinds, but at the same time I do, because if I've got a negative review, something that I don't want to something that I don't necessarily like, it makes me work that much harder in trying to explain what exactly is going on in my feelings and why, without just coming off and just saying it sucks. Because to me, if you just can go out there and be like, oh, this movie or this comic book or this music, it sucks. To me, that's like the most simplistic thing you could ever say. And if you got something to say like that about a movie, I mean, without kind of giving any real reasons for it, I can't label you as a credible source for somebody that I can go to and listen to your critique or criticizing of a movie, because it sucks is the most simplistic thing that you could put out there. Now, it's kind of like, I mean, or at least bring some sort of context to it. Like I know a lot of people, when I actually used to watch football, one of the things is, and this was back in those days, a lot of people would say oh, the Cincinnati Bengals, pff, they suck. Or the Kansas City Chiefs, they suck. Okay, well, yeah, I mean, they suck for professional ball players. You got to think that, all the teams in the league, they're still the professionals. You know what I mean? So you still got to bring that type of context to it. I mean, just because they suck doesn't mean like they're terrible. They're still like they've been drafted. They're getting paid. They're in the National Football League. So to say that they sucks, it's not a good critique of something. You gotta think like they're the the worst of the best. And is that a bad thing? I don't necessarily think that's so. And just because, just like even on any of these teams during that time, or any kind of team like that where people, want to say they suck, you got to remember they have talent on teams like that, or in movies that you don't like or anything like that. They have talent. It's just maybe they don't have a good coach to utilize it. Maybe they don't have a good game plan. Maybe the players or the individual people involved just don't work well together. So it's just not going to work out. You can have a team in the NBA and the NFL made up of all the all stars. Made of the best players. You can have the best running backs, the best quarterbacks, the best defensive ends. The best linemen. Just all these different people. You can the best tight end. You can have all these different people, but that doesn't necessarily mean that your team is going to be good. It still takes somebody to lead them, and even more than just a great quarterback to lead them. Not even a great leader can always take and elevate people, but you can still only elevate so much at that time. It takes time to work all of those things together, to get people to trust you, to get people to know how you play, different things like that. So when like I said, I get that's just me. When when people come out and say those kinds of things like this sucks, it's just the most simplistic thing. Now that if that's your opinion, just don't like it, okay, cool. But why does it suck? Why do you think it sucks? It can't just be simply that it's not good. I mean, there's got to be certain reasons why you don't like it. But can you intricate them? Can you let us all know exactly why you feel that way? And to me, that's the ultimate thing, where a lot of people can't really critique things in that way. And but that's something we all should work on. We all need to work on if you want to go out and critique or criticize just films, sports, anything like that. I mean, at least spend some time trying to sharpen those your tools in your critiquing repertoire, I guess. Is doing that, and it's not easy. It's definitely not an easy thing to do. So. Yeah, I mean, I guess I don't really know where else to go with that. He was in Patriarch says of the Sith says he was in Gatsby as well. Okay, yeah, I thought that was the one. Yeah, I haven't seen that one, but then obviously we see him in stuff like I said, like the Departed, Wolf of Wall Street. He was absolutely great in. Um, yeah, yeah, he's a good actor. He's a good actor by pretty much by any standard, if you ask me. I'm not a movie critic, but I get invited to every Disney movie via press screen. Press screen. Oh yeah, and that's the thing is, you may not be a movie critic, but you still get invited because you're still talking about it and you're still helping bring attention to the movie and giving your thoughts on it. So I don't necessarily think that it doesn't always have to be a critic. It could be just a fan of films who goes and expresses their love of a film or their why they did or didn't like it. A lot of those kinds of things, obviously, as you well know, come down to influence and things like that. Whether you have an online presence, you have an online blog, or like you have a channel here on YouTube where you talk about those kinds of things. So people still look to you for those kinds of things. So yeah, I mean, I don't think it necessarily takes a critic to have to do these things. Like I said, we all and at the same time, maybe they're actually trying to help you develop as and help you grow as not only a content creator but as a movie critic and things like that. Maybe just getting different objective points of view. So I don't think it's a bad thing. I don't think it's a bad thing. That just because you're a movie critic and you get some of the passes for the press screenings, that's good. Because the more like I feel, the more people that we have putting the output out there, the more you can kind of get a feel for where for how a movie possibly is. Now the thing is, you always got to take into context who exactly is giving the review. We can see that there are people out there who don't like a superhero movie. They don't like movies based on comic books and things like that. So we know that this critic is probably going to give the latest MCU movie, the latest DC movie, or anything like that, probably not such a great review because we already know they don't like it. And then then you get somebody who's like obviously a huge fan of these things. You know that they're a huge fan, and how are they going to critique it? You know what I mean? So. I think a lot of that comes down to, just kind of knowing what people do and don't like, and that's why I get, why I understand, and I know, don't get mad at me for saying this, people. Don't get mad at me for saying this, but that's why I understand when Brie Larson makes comments like she don't care what this guy thinks about A Wrinkle in Time. I get it because the movie's not made for him. And honestly, movies are made for everybody to watch. Okay, movies are made for everybody to watch. But the thing is I get it because what she's saying, what I always kind of took out of that, and something I see a lot is, from some of these Hollywood critics and things like that, we get the same old thing every single time. We need something fresh. We need something new, and I think that's why it's a good thing when we get people like you, Warstu, who get invited to these kinds of press screenings and things like that, so we can get different objective points of view. So it's not just all skewered one way. Now, the best example I can think of things like that, and I say this all the time, is you need to go back and check out. I just say it because these movies I happen to know, and I think I got the point of why they did it. Was the Wachowskis when they went through and did the Matrix. I got these box sets of the Matrix, and I think you can probably find them on the regular DVDs. They have commentaries on them. I think there's a commentary from just like the directors. There's a commentary from some philosophers out there. like doctors of philosophy, who teach, things like that. And then there's a one that has movie critics. And through the course of watching those, and I don't know that I necessarily watched all of them all the way through, but you can see like through just being reflected in the movie and the dialogue that they're having on these commentary tracks. The philosophers obviously are going through there doing their commentary track, talking about the movie, talking about just the different things that happen in the movie and how they relate to philosophy, what it's referencing, and all of these different things, just all the different layers that a movie like The Matrix has. And then you get to the critics, the movie critics, and I believe one of them was from I can't remember what one of those news publications he was from, but he was a movie critic, kind of somebody that was big into it, might still be big into it, but this ridiculous things that they talk about throughout the commentary are like, really, like, this is like, I don't even see how this is relevant to what you're talking about. So it was kind of, to me, it was a great thing to reflect how different people look at the movies, and kind of how these critics look and judge a movie compared to your average person like me. I was watching these things, and I'm just like, you're talking about the most mundane things. Like there's a line. I remember one specific thing was in the Matrix. Was it The Matrix? It must have been Reloaded, where Keanu Reeves' character, Neo, is flying through the air, and oh man, it's not Tanker Dozer at that time. It was their brother that he was the operator, and they asked him. He goes, oh yeah, he's out doing his Superman thing, and the critic on the movie is like his Superman thing, like they're just going and assuming that everybody knows what Superman is or who it is without talking about it and setting that up. Like, okay, bro, like yeah, I'm pretty sure most people, especially if you're at a Matrix film, you know who Superman is. If not, he says he's doing his Superman thing, and you see him flying through the air, one could easily make the assumption that Superman is a person who flies. And that's why I say it's kind of ridiculous on some of these things, like with some of these big movie critics and everything out there. Like, how credible are they really? So that, like I said, that's one of the definite good things about getting different objective viewpoints out there, not just from movie critics, because more people should be involved in sharing that. Now, again, like I said, it does still come down to what is this person's view on things, taking that into perspective. And as we can see, we get a lot of convoluted conversation about these DCU films, the MCU films, and things like that from people who are fans versus people who aren't fans versus people who were but aren't anymore. Just different things like that. So always taking those kinds of things into account. And I think for me, I think that's where a lot of people fail at when they're talking about giving their movie reviews, is review the movie. Let us know kind of what happened in the movie and the things like that, and then give your how you thought about them, and then give us your personal feelings, like, where do you come from? To me, because like I said, to me, I think a lot of that context is the important thing when it comes down to judging a movie, and critiquing a movie, is exactly where do you come from. And that's like, if you guys follow me here on the channel, I really try to keep it as objective as possible. I don't let most of the times I don't really let my personal feelings get involved in some of these things. Like, I have personal feelings, but like, if I'm trying to like I said, trying to critique a movie, it's not my opinion that matters of on a critique of a movie. It's whether this film, do they do good things in this film? The camera movements, the way things are framed, just different things like that. Like, I could go through and talk about X-Men: Dark Phoenix. While a lot of people went out and slammed this film, it's not as bad as some people make it seem. There are just a lot of things that happen in this movie that kind of culminate in making this movie not such a great movie. Like, I could tell you there are shots in the movie that are just odd and out of place. To me, it's almost like cinematography 101, really. Like, there's just some shots, like, I know at one point they're on the island and they got Magneto and he's on screen. They're showing Michael Fassbender, but like the camera is like it's like way too up close on him, and it just makes for an odd and uncomfortable feeling in the movie, and it doesn't really make makes sense, where it should be, the camera should be panned out more. It's just not framed well, and that happens several times throughout the movie. So those kinds of things, an actual critique of a movie, not just saying, oh, the cameraman, the cinematographer for this movie sucks. Like, no, like there are things that weren't that great that could have been better, but did you notice them, and can you see what they are, and can you point them out? That's going to be more the difference between just like giving like critiquing a movie and just giving a review of a movie. And like I said, it's something that a lot of people miss, and it's not an easy skill to develop. I remember back in the early 2000s, I was young, I was in my 20s and everything. I didn't have kids and a wife or anything like that. But I was literally like at the movies like every single weekend, probably multiple times, just watching different films and noticing all the different things, different directors do. In case you guys, I mean, if you're just like just a film fan, you may not realize a lot of the things, typical kind of things that, should be done in a movie, or just different things like that. I mean, it takes time to develop those skills and really notice them, and kind of, I guess, be able to call them out and be able to critique those kinds of things. So it's by no means anything that's easy to do. It's not an easy thing to do. Let's get back here into the chats. Let's see. Agreed, and it's subjective. Yeah, a lot. Yeah, just a lot of them are. Exactly. Lloyd Cal says exactly. They'd run rings around any of the fans watching. Yeah, yeah. Patriarchs, didn't help that a couple KC Chiefs players were caught in bathrooms sucking stuff. I don't know what that's referencing, but I mean, I'm not gonna look into that one. Lord Cal says Gatsby was a good one. Yeah, I need to watch that one too. Like I said, I'm not a huge Leo fan, but I am a fan of Leo's. So. Warstu says, I got turned down for Rotten Tomatoes verified. Huh, that's odd. I mean, I don't know why that would be. I mean, obviously, you've got a platform. You're pretty well known. I mean, it's not like I don't think anybody out there looks at you like a troll or anything. I mean, some people may not like you or what you say, but it just seems a little bit odd. You're not Rotten Tomatoes verified because you're I don't know, somewhat well-known personality, I would guess. I mean, plenty of people seem to know who you are. So yeah, it just seems a little odd. Patriarch says, you ever see Aviator at Callis? It's pretty good. Yeah, again, I don't know. I haven't seen that one, but Patriarch says, Larson. Oh, sorry. There's a certain market for every movie though, and there is there's definitely, and some movies obviously play to that audience more than they do others, and that's why I say, like, this particular one, Quentin Tarantino, he's on record saying that he's he is a liberal. He's not Republican at all. I mean, he has outright said that. But yeah, you'll see a lot of the people who do like his films are people who aren't necessarily liberal. They might be more Republican, or more this or more that. Their political views, I can guarantee you, probably differ from Quentin Tarantino's. But that's the good thing. That's the good thing about a good director, a good producer, a good writer, is they can give you that entertainment objectively and make it entertaining for no matter who's watching the movie. No matter who's watching their movie. So that's that. Like I said, that's the good thing about a great writer. Whether you have liberal views, conservative views, just different views, a great writer can write and play to and keep an audience entertained. And that's by no means an easy thing. That's by no means an easy thing. And that's, something like comedians. A lot of people look at comedians, and they don't like this person, they don't like that person. This person's funny, that person's not. And the thing is to me, comedy is one of the hardest things out there in the world to do. Not even just being a stand-up comedian. Anybody can go stand up and tell jokes. People are going to like it or they're not. Now the thing is but going in to make even like a movie that's a comedy, to me, if you ask me, and I don't know, I'm not like a filmmaker or anything, or a director or anything, or a writer, but comedy has got to be the hardest thing out there to make, because comedy is all about timing. It's all about, it's all about the jokes, and they don't play well with everybody. So people who do comedies, direct comedies, write comedies, and things like that. Hey man, my hat's off to you, because that's got to be one hell of a challenge. You can horror films. You can make something gory and just just like a horror type of movie. And they always say, I've heard people say that, like, if you want to get into Hollywood, just get into horror because it's the easiest thing. Now, while I feel that might be true, just because a lot of horror films, if you can make a lot of things practical. You don't have to have a bunch of CG or special effects or anything like that. So for me, I think that's one reason why. And plus, you just gotta make it good and entertaining. Where if you're trying to make a comedy, you're trying to make it funny. And that's not easy to do, and that's by no means any kind of shots at people who are horror film directors or anything like that, because it is not easy to make a horror film either. To make a great one, it's not easy to do. As we can see, it seems like there's a lot of them out there, and there's so few that actually get put up on that pedestal of being great films. So definitely, each one definitely has their hallmarks of things that might be easier or harder to do. But like I said, to me, I think comedy's got to be one of the hardest ones, because it's really all about timing. And an example I could think of is, go and look at what's her name, Melissa McCarthy, and her husband Ben Falcone. They don't work well together. This husband and wife duo, like most of their films. I think one of them that I've seen, it was somewhat funny. Like, it was that close to just being a great movie, to being funny, but it just seems to fall short every single time. And to me, some of that, like, I know I've seen another one. Was it Tammy, maybe? And I think they worked together on that one too, where there was, it was a comedy, is supposed to be funny, but there was just certain times where serious moments happen in the movie that really kind of, it's like they're trying to make it funny, when it's like, this shouldn't be funny. It's not supposed to be a comedy. Like, it's not good. It just doesn't play well. Just like, to me, like The Broken Lizard. I'm not sure if you guys know who The Broken Lizard are. Their movies, I'm not really into. They did Beer Fest, Club Dread, just some, like, a lot of those Super Troopers. These movies, I'm just not a fan of them. And it's because, to me, every single time I watch one of their movies, they just miss the mark of being funny. Just miss it by just a little. Like Beer Fest, I was going through the whole movie, I'm saying, like, yes, like, finally I'm getting a Broken Lizard movie that's good. And then, like, they're just towards the end, it just all just fell and just went off a cliff. And I was like, at the end, I'm just like, man, dang it. Like, I wanted to like it. It was so close, but by the end of the film, I was just like, I just can't do it. There's it's just, I don't know, just some of the things they did. It just kind of took everything else they had done, and throughout the movie, the build up, and just trashed it. And it's unfortunate. Man, where's, oh. So yeah. Let's see. Where we at though? Where's Street True? Maverick Pilgrim? Welcome to the stream. Thank you for being here. Uh, Hello, Cynical Centrist. Thank you for being here as well. Hello, welcome to the stream. Saw the movie Sunday. Left the theater for the violent parts because I'm squeamish. Excellent movie. Okay, yeah, fair enough. And it's funny too, because a lot of times Quentin Tarantino usually does simulated violence. He was well known for that, doing a lot of simulated violence without actually putting it on screen. And obviously, there's plenty of times where he puts it right on screen. And yeah, this one, I mean, there towards the end, it got pretty gratuitous with the violence, which I thought was I don't know, it was entertaining, it was funny. But some of the other stuff in the movie too. Where there was definitely just some more violent parts. A good movie though. Good movie. Maverick Pilgrim says one of the best classes I ever took was a studies in classic films class. That actually sounds very entertaining. There is a standard by which to judge movies as a craft, and there is always a philosophical element. Yeah, and there is, and that's the thing is. A lot of people don't understand that. I myself, I don't necessarily know that. Maybe, I probably need to go take some of those classes myself. But again, it's one of those kind of things where, just like Quentin Tarantino, I guess. I mean, I spent a lot of time growing up watching films, watching old films, watching new films, just kind of watching, taking in all I could. And once you start seeing all these films and, really paying attention to a lot of these things, you start to be able to critique and pick out some of the things, things that most people don't really notice. I've talked about this before. Like when it comes down to a movie, anything you see on that screen, the director intended for you to see. Now that I would say that plays mostly to movies. I'm not going to get into TV shows where we see like whatever that TV show was where people were talking about with the water bottle and the Starbucks cup and all that stuff. That's something different, but those are definitely things that a director, an editor, person, I can't remember what they call them, that's in charge of continuity, not even just your set dresser and stuff like that, but should know and should notice and be like, hey, like, no. It made me appreciate the art of filmmaking, how to appreciate it as well as visual storytelling. Definitely, a class like that would. I mean, if you're going to talk about movies and review them and stuff like that, it's something, probably a class that people should take. I mean, just noticing and seeing those kinds of things. Like I said, there's so many things in some, especially in like a Quentin Tarantino film, just things that one would notice. Certain how a certain shot is framed to build the tension, how to finish that tension. You don't just build it up and then just leave it out. I mean, there's just like a certain progression of things that you go through to get there. So yeah, I mean, anybody who loves movies should probably take classes like that. I mean, you should always, take an interest in the things you like. Read books about them. Take classes about them. There's things you can actively do out there to, I don't know, even if it's not a craft you like, to just, I don't know, further your skills as a fan, as a critic, or anything like that. Cynical Contra says, what do you think about Tarantino and his constant showing of bare feet? Is he trying to show that the character is carefree and or relaxed? I just think he has a foot fetish. To be honest with you, I just think he has a foot fetish. But also, many people would argue. We could go into the benefits or non-benefits of wearing shoes. Guess you could say. I've heard people talking about, wearing shoes, like if you never wore shoes in your life, your feet could virtually do the same thing as your hands and stuff like that. So, I think there's some, there's probably something to that, though. Rather showing they're carefree or relaxed, as we've seen in this movie. Did see the hippie girl with her dirty feet and walking around, and he was constantly showing Brad Pitt's character's moccasins and different things like that. And these are some things that people really pay attention to. I mean, I know there's people out there who actually look all the time at people's shoes and what they're wearing, and people are like, oh, well, you can tell a lot about a person by their shoes, and I'm sure you can. So, but I'm pretty sure he has a foot fetish. But yeah, and he does it, like, it seems like he does that in all of his movies. It seems like, with the foot thing. Maverick Pilgrim says, I've only seen Inglourious Bastards by Quentin Tarantino, so I wouldn't be able to assess a trend. Okay, yeah. You should definitely, if you're gonna go back and watch any of his films, you should definitely go back and watch Reservoir Dogs. For one, it's an excellent film. So many films I kind of play on it too, reference it and things like that. Pulp Fiction to me is one of the all-time. It's a classic in my mind. Definitely one of my favorites. I was actually lucky enough to see that at the theater on the big screen when that came out. We were theater hopping because I wasn't old enough to see it. I think I was 14, maybe 15 at the time. We theater hopped and went and seen it, and couple minutes into the movie, I think we missed just the very beginning setup because we walked in. It was right at the point where John Travolta and Samuel L. Jackson's characters walk into the apartment as they're having that conversation at the very beginning of the movie. But I remember walking out of that movie as a 15-year-old. I was just walked out of the movie like, whoa. Yeah, like Keanu. Whoa. What did I just watch? I was excited. I'd never seen a movie like it. I'd never seen a movie like that. So, he's definitely got a style and everything of his own. So, yeah, he's definitely got a style that he likes to follow. Even in his other movies that aren't like Reservoir Dogs or Pulp Fiction or anything like that, you can see he's definitely got a style of his own, kind of a film noirish kind of feel to almost everything that he does. And it's good. I like what he does, and that's not to say that all his movies are great. I mean, I like all of his movies, but and that's what I was thinking about when I think about ranking Quentin Tarantino movies. I think like none of his films are like really terrible, but obviously when it comes down to it, some of the movies have to be towards the bottom. They not everything can be at the top of the list. And for me, one of those movies is like Inglourious Bastards is not one of my favorites that he done. Jackie Brown isn't one of the my favorites that he done. Death Proof, while entertaining, it's probably not up there. I mean, at the top is going to be Reservoir Dogs, Pulp Fiction. I thought Hateful Eight was a very good one as well. So yeah, but yeah, he definitely has his own kind of style. Maverick Pilgrim says, yeah, comedy is really difficult, especially comedy that stands the test of time. Too many comedies rely on popular references that expire, and that's true, and that's why yeah, there are timeless classic comedies out there. Stuff that just gets people laughing no matter what for the most part. Lord Cal says, cynical centrist. That's an interesting take. I thought they said it was because he has a fetish. Yeah, and I'm sure he does. I'm pretty sure he has a fetish. But at the same time, I mean, it would reflect a character's ability of being carefree or things like that. Like I said, there's a lot of people out there who do look to people's feet to see and see what kind of shoes they're wearing. Matter of fact, I just seen a story on. Yeah, it might have been here on YouTube where there was a guy working in New York City, makes a living shining shoes, and he's out there every day. Makes good money just shining people's shoes. But people are walking by and he'll look at their shoes and he starts commenting on them to try to get them to try to reel them in to shine their shoes or just different things like that. So it's definitely something people pay attention to. Definitely something people pay attention to. Cynical Centrist says, I noticed this movie is I noticed the feet in this movie because everyone seems so dirty. Yes, yeah, definitely. Well, because they're dirty hippies. That's why. That's why. And which was something that happened in the film throughout the film that just kind of a recurring joke throughout the whole movie. I thought it was pretty good. Lord Cal says, I'm guilty for looking at shoes. They make or break the outfit. Yeah, and a lot of people feel that way too. I'm not really big on shoes. Like I get, for me, they're just something that I need as a function to get out there in the world to protect my feet against some of the stuff that's on the glass or on the ground. I mean, and where I live at, it's extremely hot all the time. It seems like, so I don't want to burn my feet. But yeah, I mean, like me, I'm a t-shirt, flip flops, and shorts kind of guy. Like most of the time I probably look like a beach bum. So, so I'm definitely one of those people. Like, don't judge me off of my shoes, please. I swear I'm a good, humble person. But I guess that's all I really got for this video today, folks. Thank you all so much for tuning into the Second Street Marvel. Now, in case you don't already know, tomorrow, I've talked about this before. Tomorrow is going to be Some Black Guys and a Drunk. It's a show that's been set up by Drunk 3PO. There should be a link down in the description here to his channel where you can go and check out Drunk 3PO and check out some of the past streams that we've done called Some Black Guys and a Drunk. But this week it's actually going to be it's going to be tomorrow. It's on Tuesdays now. It's going to be over on the Lonely Banters channel, so you should definitely get out and check out LB. Check out his channel, subscribe. Make sure you turn on those notifications because you got to know when we're going live. But Definitely get over there and check that out. We've got Drunk 3POs put together an awesome panel of creators to come by and talk about just some of the things going on in the news, whether it pertains to comic books, movies, just different things like that. Just different things that are going on in the news. Excellent panel of people that have varying degrees of opinions and outlooks on things, and that's the beauty of it. Is you see us all coming together. We all have our individual thoughts. You won't see necessarily any of us how would you say that are going to back down from our thoughts and opinions. I mean, we feel the way we feel, and that's just the way it is. You don't you don't have to like it, you don't have to love it, you don't have to hate it. We're just there sharing our thoughts, and that's the good thing about the show. And if you go and check it out, you'll see that. And I've noticed this too in that particular stream is the chats are a lot different. A lot of people just interact a little bit differently on the show, and I think it's because they see that like wow, this is a great panel of people who have varying degrees of thoughts and opinions on the subjects that we're talking about. So definitely something you should check out. That's tomorrow at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, 5 p.m. Pacific Standard Time over on the Lonely Banters channel this week. You should definitely go out and check that out. But what you should also do is, there's a link down in the description. Go and check out my Patreon channel. If you would like to become a Patreon supporter, just start at $1. That's all I ask. Like I said, I was talking about this the other day. I just recently started plugging my Patreon. My whole goal there is I want to build this channel up. I would like to eventually get a website. I've got some equipment that I would like to upgrade. I could use some better lighting, some different like a capture card and things like that to get my good camera to be able to hook up for these live stream shows, so I can bring you a more beautiful looking show. And as well as that, one of my other goals through that is obviously to interact with my Patreon supporters and get their input on what they would like to see in my videos. But not only that, my other thing with that is if I had, like, for example, right now I've got like 330 subscribers. If I had each and every one of those subscribers just donating $1, by the time I get to the point where I could be monetized on YouTube, which we all know is, you got to have 1,000 subscribers, 1,000 hours, and all, or 4,000 hours of watch time and all that stuff. If I get to the point, if I had 1,000 subscribers, I got to the point where I could be monetized. Say I got 1,020 subscribers or whatever, and I had 800 of those people as $1 Patreon supporters. I have no reason to plug my videos with ads. I don't like watching ads. I'm sure you don't like watching ads. I don't want to put them on there. And if I had a good supportive community, which I believe I do, that's you guys, the awesome viewers. If I had that, I have no reason to make pennies off of ads from YouTube when you could just be a Patreon supporter. Google don't have to take 30% of the money that you want to donate or anything like that. But there would obviously still be super chats where you could always go and send in super chat messages and things like that. So that's part of the reason that I started that. And I would appreciate your support there, but go check it out. I am gonna start doing some exclusive things for Patreons once that really kind of builds up. But like I said, I want to build the community with you guys. I want your guys' input on it. And if you're supporting me, I definitely value that input. And if you're here watching, I definitely appreciate it, and I value your input as well as your critique and criticisms of me and my channel. I don't want to be on here and have not necessarily like yes men, but I want to have a bunch of people here just pat me on the back saying, hey, good content. I need actual good critiquing. Do you think what I'm saying is valid? Do you think I'm an idiot? Do you what could I do to improve my content? That's something that I appreciate. Like I said, I don't if you got something you don't like me, you got something negative to say, let it be said. Let it be said. There's nothing wrong with that. I'm not one of these people that believes we ever have to agree on everything, or that we have to disagree on anything, or that we have to agree to disagree, because that's just a bullshit argument. But thank you all so much for tuning in to Second Street Marvel today. Now, if you haven't, please make sure you subscribe, click the little bell so you get notifications and all of that good stuff. And while you're at it, please make sure that you share this video with a friend and invite them to come hang out with us here, because as soon as I hit 350 subscribers here on the channel, I'm going to be giving away a copy of Warner Brothers Shazam. So To get entered into that, you got to make sure that you're subscribed and leave a comment in this video or any of the videos going forward until I hit 350 subscribers. You all have a very good day. Have a great week. New Comic Book Wednesday is coming up on Wednesday. Make sure you get out to your local comic book shop and support them. I've got a video I'm going to be doing later for the Trailer Park News, so hopefully you guys get a chance to check that out. You all have a good day. Have a great rest of your week, and we'll see you in the next video. Later.